is a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
If it's a door-to-door salesman, buyer beware. Hi, this is Jason.
And Kathy of Window World.
Answer that door and prepare for some serious baloney.
You know, overpriced, but on sale today.
Big special.
Manager's discount.
Model home in the neighborhood.
Remember, the sale ends today.
Hey, it's all baloney.
Window World's different.
Check windowworldutah.com.
Or call 801-281-8111.
Window World. Simply the best for less.
And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah.
Wendy's breakfast burrito has an entire breakfast in every bite. Fresh cracked eggs, seasoned potatoes, American cheese, cheese sauce, and sausage or bacon. So the first bite is like fresh American cheese sauce. Bacon. And the second bite is like fresh American cheese sauce. Bacon. And the third bite, you get the idea. The boss of breakfast burritos, gotta be Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours.
At the UPS store, we know being a small business owner means holiday time is still go time. Still get those orders shipped time. And still re-up on stamps and supplies time. That's why this upcoming holiday, while others close up shop, we'll be open. And happy to help you keep being unstoppable. Come into your local store today. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS store. Be unstoppable.
We're still looking at emergency traffic now, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right lane still blocked northbound I-15 at Pleasant Grove Boulevard just before the exit ramp. You can still take the off-ramp. It is not blocked to traffic, but those right lanes are, and that's what's causing stop-and-go delays too. Approximately Center Street in Orem, a lot of people are avoiding northbound I-15, and the overflow slowing is now on northbound Geneva Road, going from Orem up to I-15. We also have a small accident at the ramp to southbound I-215's West Belt at 3500 south. The vehicles are on the right shoulder. UDOT construction alert. Plan ahead as southbound I-215 in West Valley City is down to one lane each night through Saturday, followed by a full closure of the freeway on Sunday night for bridge repairs. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And we'll see sunny skies today, partly cloudy tonight and tomorrow. I have 84 today, or 86 rather, and 80 tomorrow for the high. Right now, 84 degrees. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we often say, the day the journey begins is not the day the journey begins, and it's how we travel together that matters across our differences to build bridges and to create a better future for everyone. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is time to think again about what we think we know, and we're going to do that in a most unique way today. We're very grateful to have joining us on the program, Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal, Anglican priest, theologian specializing in Christian church history at Oxford's Pembroke College. His accomplishments are many. His influence is immense. He is someone who has a unique connection to the Beehive State. He'll be speaking down at the Wheatley Institute, Brigham Young University, tonight, and joins us on the line. And Reverend Teal, thank you so much for making time for us on what I know is a very busy day for you.
Boyd, it's great to hear you again, and it's a privilege to speak to you.
Well, let's start with this walking together. I think one of your unique gifts is your ability to reach out, link and lock arms with people across faith differences, across cultures. Give us a sense of why we need that more than ever in our society.
Well, when you just described it in that way, my mind immediately jumped to Luke's gospel, where two dejected people after the death of Jesus in Jerusalem are walking back to Emmaus, and a stranger comes along and opens up a conversation. You know, they say, as we can do rather cruelly, "Are you the only person who doesn't know this?" And that's one way of having a religious discussion. But Jesus doesn't pick them up on it. He just engages with them and goes through all the different things to expand their minds and hearts so that they can see that wonderful overarching arc of the purposes of God and the love of God. And I think we do that walking together. We do it with people whom we don't expect are going to be the means whereby God actually leads us on. So one of the things that it's great to do is to have conversations just with your neighbor. In one of the lifts in a hotel in the center of Salt Lake, it said when I first came, "Let's start a conversation worth having." And I think that little postcard that someone had just stuck on the wall, I think it's really, really important to start conversations and build trust and understanding, and based on integrity. And there's a place in that for both reverence and wit.
Yes. I so love that. And the reverence and wit I'm going to come back to because I think they go hand in hand so beautifully. And it is that beginning, that road to Emmaus moment that we all get, that first meetings are so important, especially because they often lead to so many different miracles. I literally just walked off the stage of a One Kind Act summit that was about building community, and we had Bishop Phyllis Spiegel from the Episcopal Diocese. We had Bishop Oscar Solis from the Catholic Diocese, Reverend Sandra Lucas from the Church of Scientology, and Rabbi Spector from Kolami Synagogue, and Elder Derek Miller from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Dr. Salman Masood, who's the part of the Utah Muslim Civic League. And I wish you had been with us. It was an extraordinary road to Emmaus that led us to some higher ground as we covered a wide range of things. But it all started with that reverence for one another. So take us through reverence, and then let's get to wit.
Well, okay. I mean, one of the things that we do is nowhere near as high-powered as that. I've not met the current Episcopal bishop of the Diocese of Utah. But I really liked the last one, Bishop Ayashi. But what we do in Oxford in a very small way, every Thursday we have what we call open theology session. We invite people, but not only students and faculty members, but also people from faith communities around Oxford. We usually end up with about 8 or 9 faith communities and about 30 people. And we look at different stuff. We've looked at difficult differences in doctrine, and we've looked at that together. We've looked at how people understand Jesus, and from Hindu and from Jewish and from different traditions. And what really is important is, as well as people coming and teaching us to listen, because listening is quite a difficult art, actually, there's a sense in which we then become each other's advocates. One of the things that sticks in my mind is a conversation between a Palestinian Muslim man and a Jewish Israeli woman. And both of them were able in that context, because we're walking trustfully and reverently together, to say, actually, it's really hard to bear all the expectations that people pour on us, especially in this time of conflict. And the rest of us knew that we were standing on holy ground, not so much walking together, but taking off our shoes, because there was something absolutely sacred about this moment. And so if in that sort of context, one was trying to score points, that would have been an open goal for somebody to have sort of just said something unpleasant. But whole community held and was led on because of the honesty, because of the reverence with which these two communities, which represent two nations at war.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible moment. Well, a small moment, but one of those. Sometimes when you climb the Wasatch Front and you look out onto the beautiful different landscapes and cities. The magnitude of it gets you, but sometimes it's the tiniest little flower that you see, this small little sign of resilient hope in this massive context, and that's how it feels. It's not earth shattering. It's not being the big names, but it's working also with people, many of whom are students, and trying to model a life which is based on listening and cooperating and understanding, rather than asserting and arguing.
That's so powerful, and it is that when you make that climb to higher ground, and then it's common ground, and then as you said, Reverend Teal, then it's holy ground. And that's such an extraordinary space that we need to find, and we need to be willing to climb to, not just for the magnificent view, but as you said, for the small details in God's creation and the holiness, the reverence we see in one another. I know you have a unique connection and relationship with President Jeffrey R. Holland of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and his son, Elder Matthew Holland. And I know part of that is not only this reverence you have for one another, but you all have some pretty amazing wit. And that is such an important part. I want you to describe that for us.
Well, it's not limited to those two.
Yeah.
but you can see that both, I don't want to blow anything personal, but both Mary and David, his son, as well as Matthew, have grown up with the clown of God, the person who is willing to expose both strengths and weaknesses, but do so in a generous and open-hearted way, which bubbles out. And it's not just President Holland, President Jeffrey Holland, but the beloved Sister Pat was just so kind and gentle, but witty too. She was one who could observe something and make you laugh at yourself. No one's done that more for me than David. At my first ever conference I went to, I thought he'd been appointed as my minder, but here he was sitting next to me with these Monty Python lines all the way through. Yeah. And there's something you can say, that you should always have a friend whom you shouldn't go to anything serious with. And he was, I mean, that's the only time I met him on that occasion of the conference. But he was that sense in which he was not afraid to draw from all of the wonder and significance of what it means to be a human. Aristotle describes human beings as rational animals which laugh. And I think, in a sense, if we're just rational, if we're just sort of focused on the serious stuff, we miss its real significance. A laugh can do something. If you see something that's funny and beautiful, even when the door is strictly barred and locked, humor and love and the yearning for the other person in joy can carve its way through. So I do think, in a sense, it's that indispensable. It stops us taking ourselves too seriously, and it also holds up a bit of a mirror when we sort of deceive ourselves into thinking we're this or that.
Yes.
But it's not mocking laughter. The laughter of the angels is encouraging laughter.
Encouraging laughter. something we all need just a little bit more. That's my conversation with Reverend Teal. We're going to stay with that. Of course, that was a little earlier this week. If you want to watch his entire presentation, you can go to wheatley.byu.edu, and you can see the full presentation that he delivered down there at BYU this week. We're going to step aside for a quick break, but we're going to stay with the question, and we're going to stay with the conversation with Reverend Andrew Teal from Oxford coming up next. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. 2 amendments down.
Amendment A will be on your ballot, but the votes won't be counted.
2 to go.
Yeah, so at this point, what we're telling people is to vote their whole ballot.
We dig into the details of why your vote on A, just like D, will not count in this election. Your voice, your vote 2024 on KSL News Radio.
It's time to check in on your financial future. Hercules First Federal Credit Union has been around since 1946. They have always been about growing stronger together. You are not a transaction at Hercules. You are part of the family. It's about a relationship. And right now they've got low interest rates, competitive rates that are truly the lowest they've been in years. You can get a flexible mortgage, and they have all kinds of options for you. They have fixed, adjustable, FHA, VA, including options for those who have less than perfect credit. Bad credit? No problem. There's a process and a way to do it because you're in a relationship. If you're a first-time home buyer, all kinds of great programs that have specialized mortgage offerings with low down payment options to bring home ownership within reach for you and for more people in our community. Hercules First Federal Credit Union. Again, you're part of the family. You're growing stronger together. You can check out their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, and Riverton. But you can always find our friend at Hercules at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Are you ready to upgrade your home with stunning new windows in time for the holidays, but overwhelmed on how to begin? Look no further than Peach Windows. You know at Peach, they're all about giving you options. Peach offers a wide selection of wood windows, sleek modern black metal frames, European tilt and turn windows, plus much, much more. Let Peach help you find the perfect match for your home. They can work with your budget and personal style. Visit their showroom in Salt Lake City, 2940 South 300 West. That's 2940 South 300 West, and see for yourself. No pushy sales tactics, only guidance from the experienced staff. No inflated markups, just offers so-called discounts. See their 5-star reviews where customers rate them on their attention to detail through every step of the sale and installation process. Amazing home transformations begin with windows and doors. Serving Logan to St. George, just Google Peach Building to see for yourself. That's Peach Doors and Windows. Find them online, peachbuildingproducts.com, peachbuildingproducts.com. It's Peach Doors and Windows.
The KSL News Radio Movie Show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629. 801-701-1629 for more details. My Hearing Centers has offices from Ogden to St. George.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Part of what you described in this sharing of wit is also this element that I think we also lack in society today that keeps us a safe distance from important conversations, and that is some courageous vulnerability, that willingness to not put on those airs or that brave face and being a little bit more vulnerable.
That's a really good question because we live as this weekend has addressed some of the tragic polarization that we're seeing all around us, both personally and politically and socially. That's not the answer. And the vulnerability, when we see somebody's wounds, when somebody is able to not try to spend all their energy covering up, but to use that as a way into touching another's wounds. I think it was the Knights Templar, when they were fighting or whatever it was, they would always, if somebody were wounded, they'd always put their arms on, and I think we get the thing of a pressure, so that we put the pressure on a wound to stop it burning or bleeding or whatever. I guess wounds are something that take us to that level of what it is to be human and to inhabit our contingency and our penultimacy, that we can think of ourselves as this is it, and I'm in charge of who I am. I'm the only person who has a right to say who I am. But the acknowledgement of vulnerability invites other people into us, and we discover that the wonderful paradox that actually, I don't know who I am. I need you to be in a relationship with me, so that we find out. And ever more like an unfurling flower, ever more petals of life open up because we're with other people, that engagement with others. And I think vulnerability is absolutely necessary. We all know how awful it can be when we see people we love, or when we do ourselves, when we take ourselves so seriously and just get angry, and we all do this. I certainly do this. Yeah. But there's a way of touching wounds which is different from pressing buttons. And I guess perhaps we're afraid that if we show our wounds to others, they're just going to exploit it. Yeah. Some of the things that happen outside General Conference, I always chuckle about this, is the people will come and stand on the corner and shout, yell at people going in, people who want them to go in to reflect upon the joy of the gospel, and to hear things which will shape their self-understanding and their faith. And it's really sad. But one of the wonderful things is having to go through that and all the puzzlement of how do I respond? I'm coming to the point of understanding you don't try because you get dragged into an argument. But then you go in, and there's a sense in which together in General Conference, for example, you're with the people of God, and you can pray for those who are provoked because we have this access to joy and to understand what repentance is. It's not beating somebody up. It's that joy of being human and changing our minds. Yeah. So I'm guessing that actually vulnerability is because we, perhaps we don't trust that's the way that God wants to help us to grow up. Yeah. And so we become. Somebody once said that in life, it was actually a beautiful man from Yorkshire in England, that if you're going to minister in life, you have to have a buffer. You can't be destroyed by everything that happens. You have to, he would say, is it called a fender or a bumper? What do you call the things on the front of a car in America?
A bumper.
A bumper. You have to have a bumper. He said, but you mustn't be a rhinoceros. You mustn't be impregnable, because then you won't be of any use. You will just charge with your sort of horn to rip at other people. But you do need to protect as well. So I guess there is that sense of recognizing when you're in a safe enough place to be vulnerable. Yeah. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about being in community, in the church community, that actually, one of the highlights of my week is Elders Quorum, where people, I go to Ward 1 in Oxford, will not posture. They won't. It's not about, oh, aren't I clever? Oh, I've done marvelous things. But people will talk honestly and share positive and negative. And that's an environment which seems to me to model real but proper vulnerability.
Yeah. Oh, I just love that. If you're just joining us, we have the Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal, Anglican priest, theologian specializing in church history at Oxford's Pembroke College, is here in the Beehive State this week. And Reverend Teal, I know you've got another speech to give and a few more things to to do before your day. Your promises to keep and miles to travel are done for the day anyway. But I want to close out with just some of your thoughts. I think these are part of your gifts and your unique ministry in your faith and across faith is your radical curiosity and your profound compassion. Again, things that we seem to be missing a lot in society that I think hold the key to overcoming some of that divisiveness that you alluded to.
I guess we sort of get into tribes and we can write people off. And if people say something, they use a word perhaps, or they're known to be the opposite political party or to have a view on social issues, then we can write them off. Everything about them is wrong and tainted. I hate to sort of whinge about social media, but it's heartbreaking to see that, sort of attacking of other people. And they're not really attacking other people. They're hitting out. And that's not going to be fruitful. I mean, if somebody says something, even if it's offensive or hurtful, it's very hard to do that. But if we have the time, i.e. not if we're rushing to our seat in general conference, and you've got to be there 30 minutes before it starts, if you've got time to actually then say, oh, why do you think that? Not in a patronizing way, but to really sort of open oneself to, there's obviously something that's made this person think or feel this way. And it's my duty, and we will all benefit if we try and understand from one another what that is. And perhaps, even in that process, the bits of me that are incomplete, that are systematically wrong, that are hidden away, can move into the light and themselves be healed. So I think there's that recognition of our corporateness, that we are one body in Christ. And that means we don't just talk to those whom we think are perfect. We make friends with those who are wounded and lost and angry and frightened and incomplete, because that's the way we are. But look, God loves us even as we are, but loves us too much to leave us like that. One of the things that Jeffrey Holland says is that, come as you are, but don't expect to stay that way. And that's not a threat.
Yeah.
That's a promise. That's a glorious promise.
Yeah.
That nothing about you, whoever's listening, nothing about any of us will not, in the fullness of time, be thrilled with the wonder of his love. And that love, we will be surprised at the breadth of its scope. We'll be surprised at what God's wonder and wisdom does. And our part in it. We're invited to be part of this.
Yeah.
What does God think he's about? He knows all about us, and yet trusts us to be part of this unfurling of his creation, and to find that actually tonight we're talking about the eternal man, the Truman Madsen lecture, that actually the eternal man, Jesus Christ, is our truest identity. That's who we are. He's claimed us as his own. He's called you by name. He's written us on the palm of his wounded hands. And he trusts us. What? But it's that sense of entrustment which can help us to entrust ourselves and to handle other people with tenderness and a healing touch rather than pointing the finger.
Yeah, so powerful. Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal, so grateful to have you on the program today. We look forward to hearing you this evening, the Wheatley Institute down at Brigham Young University, and just a fabulous perspective. Thanks for helping us get to a little higher ground today. So many wonderful applications. We're so grateful to have you here in the Beehive State, and grateful for your friendship and the way you teach all of us to walk on that road to Emmaus. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for what you do. God bless.
That was my conversation from earlier this week with Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal. You can check out his complete address down at the Wheatley Institute at wheatley.byu.edu. We'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A Trax train derailed this morning when a vehicle crashed into its side. The driver of the car had minor injuries. No one on the train was hurt. This happened at around 800 South and 200 West. UTA has a bus bridge in place for passengers going between the courthouse and the ballpark stations. Toxic algal blooms are popping up in Lake Powell, and officials say anybody who wants to go to the lake this weekend to cool down should check to make sure if the place they want to go in the lake is affected by one of these blooms. Ben Holcomb is the water quality manager at the Utah Department of Environmental Quality. He says the blooms are extremely dangerous and people should avoid any kind of contact.
Our main concern is the accidental ingestion, particularly of kids, because they have a smaller liver. They're more likely to be sensitive to it than adults, for example.
Not only are these toxic to ingest, they can cause rashes if they contact the skin. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden got a briefing today on Hurricanes Milton and Helene with the response and recovery efforts in several states.
Milton left over 3 million people without power, but with the dedication of 50,000 power line workers, 50,000 power line workers from 43 states and the country and Canada have stepped up and come down to help and to restore. They've already restored power to 1 million people so far.
In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis says rescue teams have already helped many people, quite a few pets as well. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up now 421 points on the day, while the NASDAQ is up by 82 points. And our KSL weather. Another warm one today. We could set a record for the date once again. That's next. KSL News Time 1:32.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
How do they get so excited about 50 yards?
Think of what you could sew with that.
But you need a really great sewing machine, a Bernina.
Get Bernina sewing, serging, and embroidery machines and accessories at fantastic prices. The Bernina Super Weekend Sale.
Don't miss this Dave's Bernina Super Saturday one-day event. This is the biggest sale of the year at Dave's Bernina in Provo and St. George. Saturday, October 12th. The lowest prices. Buy one, get special add-on deals, tremendous bargains on trade-ins and demo machines, and discounts on accessories. Featuring great financing offers from short-term no-interest plans to 1.9, 2.9, and up to 3.9% for 72-month options on certain machines. One day only, Saturday, October 12th.
Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
Come see the most revolutionary machine in the world, the Bernina 990.
Winter is right around the corner. And when it arrives, you need to have a way to stay warm. What if you don't have any housing at all? A winter's night outside can be fatal. If you're in Utah County, there will soon be a new resource, the Utah County Warming Centers, opening October 15th. These are not shelters. They're places for adults experiencing homelessness to come in from the cold and stay alive. Community Action Services and Food Bank is organizing volunteers and blankets for the warming centers. They need your help. Reach out online at casfb.org for more details on how you can volunteer or donate. Other resources are also available for families with children or the elderly in Utah County too. Come in to Community Action Services and Food Bank to connect with those. Warmth on a winter's night is a basic, life-sustaining need. Sign up to volunteer to the Utah County Warming Centers. Visit casfb.org today. Community Action Services and Food Bank.
Did you know that your largest investment asset might not be your retirement account or home? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. Most people don't realize that their life insurance policy is actually an asset they can sell. But for almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. We've even created a free policy value calculator at abacuspays.com so you can find out in seconds what we might pay for your policy. There are no fees and no obligations, just information. Knowing the value of your life insurance policy is as important as knowing the value of your home, your equity portfolio, or your finances in total. Discover the valuable information you need to understand the current market value for your life insurance, and then get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Visit abacuspays.com to learn more and use our free policy value calculator today.
We're still looking at emergency traffic now, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
This is in Utah County. We had an accident northbound I-15 at Pleasant Grove Boulevard just before the exit ramp. It has just been cleared, Those right lanes that it had been blocking are now open. However, we still have a lot of heavy and slow delays that remain, reaching back to Center Street in Orem. In Salt Lake County, traffic is still a little crowded and slow. Southbound I-15 at the South Interchange to 7200 South, and southbound Mountain View Corridor delays pretty solid both directions approaching 3500 South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
It'll be mostly sunny for the rest of the day, and then cloudy, partly cloudy tomorrow. Right now, we're at 84 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The Middle East has witnessed a dramatic reshaping of its strategic landscape since October the 7th of 2023. What began as a devastating attack on Israel has evolved into a complex conflict with far-reaching implication for regional power and regional dynamics. So as we analyze the events of the past year, we're confronted with some technological revelations and potential things that we need to dig into just a little bit deeper. And so we're going to focus in this segment about the military side of all of this. What's been learned? What's the impact moving forward? And really thrilled to have joining us back on the program, Ken Pollock, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, has a fantastic piece in the Dispatch on the 1 year of military lessons from the Middle East. And Ken, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me back, Boyd.
So let's dive into this. Obviously, there's a lot of things, and we have held off a lot of the lessons from the Middle East, especially the non-military ones, because we're still so much in the middle of the heartbreak and the just gut-wrenching things that are still happening over there. So we'll save that conversation for another day. But there are some important lessons that relate to military, and you've laid these out in such a great way. So give us kind of the baseline first. What are some of the high-level things that we have come to realize or come to know over the course of the past year?
Sure. So I think the easiest is the top line, the headline, the summary of how to think about these lessons on the military side is that the going into the war, Hamas, Iran, the wider, what Iran calls its axis of resistance, they felt like the technological changes of the last 10 or 15 years had started to significantly alter the military balance in the Middle East, right? And, worth remembering, for 75 years, it was a very stable balance. Israel was the strongest country by far. None of the other states of the region could possibly contend with Israel. And what they believed was that a series of technological developments, ballistic missiles, drones, anti-armor warfare, all this kind of stuff was changing that balance. And I think that was a very important element of Hamas's decision to mount this attack, Hezbollah's decision to come in on Hamas's side, and Iran's decision to support the whole thing, because they had looked at events over the last 10 or 15 years and felt like they were a lot stronger than they believed they had been, and therefore that Israel would not be able to do as much damage to them as it had in past wars, and they'd be able to do a lot more damage to Israel than they had done in past wars. And of course, what the first year of the war has demonstrated was that that was all wrong. That Israel remains the dominant power by far, with military capability unmatched by any of these other countries, and that the military technological capabilities that they were hoping were going to allow them to do better really failed altogether. And that's a critical revelation. And obviously, again, it's only the first year of the war. Unfortunately, it looks like this war is going to continue, and the lessons may change over the course of time. But right now, looking at it from this perspective, that's the most important military lesson of this war.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting, and you unpacked this just powerfully in your piece at the Dispatch, and that is whether it was the Israelis' ability to do everything from pagers and walkie-talkies to taking out key leaders in very surgical kinds of ways. To the flip side of that, and you alluded to some of the technological things that I think their opponents thought they had in terms of the drones that really underperformed in a pretty significant way.
Yeah, so this is a really good point that you're making, Boyd, which is that, I was focused on the technology, but what you're bringing into it is first the intelligence piece, which is very important. And again, Israel has once again demonstrated its, mastery of intelligence operations. I started out life at CIA, and I can tell you that, my old colleagues there, they wish they could do what Mossad has demonstrated it's been able to do all across the region. And then beyond that, there are also a lot of kind of tactical and doctrinal elements to this as well. So it's not just the technology, but what the Israelis have been able to demonstrate is that this combination of their technological mastery, their tactical mastery, and their intelligence mastery has completely overwhelmed first Hamas, now Hezbollah, and as well Iran. And one of the things I think that's out there is because the Israelis have done so well at doing tremendous damage, first to Hamas and now to Hezbollah, and also have suffered ultimately so little in retaliation. I mean, obviously, October 7th was horrendous, but in terms of the damage that many people, including many Israelis, feared they were going to take in a war with Hamas and a war with Hezbollah, that has simply not materialized. The Israelis have been able to keep their losses very, very low, so much so that once they finish Hezbollah, whatever that looks like and however that long that takes, I suspect that the Israeli leadership is going to sit down and ask themselves the question, all right, is it time to take down Iran as well?
Yeah, and that leads us into, I think, something that's so fascinating in terms of what Israel has been able to do on each of these fronts, Iran really being the big test as they fund so many of these terrorist organizations, and in a way that we just haven't seen, they really embarrassed Iran with taking out of leaders, taking out of key things, their ability to just march their way into Lebanon to the north. All of that, does that cause any recalculation in terms of Iran and them being exposed, or what does that do in terms of kind of, as you framed it, that balance?
Absolutely. I think there's no question that the Iranians are quite terrified of what they now realize Israel is capable of doing. And I think there's a strong sense in Tehran that they really opened up Pandora's box. They didn't realize they were doing so. Again, they thought they were stronger than they were. They thought that they would have a greater ability to hurt Israel and to limit Israel's ability to hurt them. And instead, what they have found out is just how unbelievably vulnerable they are to the Israelis. There are all kinds of reports that after the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, the Iranians moved their supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, to a secure location, right? Reminds me of Vice President Dick Cheney right after 9/11, but they're so terrified that the Israelis were going to hit him. Obviously, the Israelis have also demonstrated an ability to hit Iranian military targets. Your listeners may remember that after the Iranian missile strike in April, the U.S. weighed in heavily, said, please do not mount a major response. And so instead, what the Israelis did was they did this incredibly precise, absolutely brilliant, limited operation where they simply knocked out a single Iranian radar. It just happened to be the most advanced radar in Iran, the radar that controls their most advanced surface-to-air missile system. So is the Israelis just sending a message to the Iranians, you have no way of defending against us. We can knock out your most sophisticated air defense system, and we can do it with ease. I think there's no question this has more than just rattled the Iranians. They are looking for a way out of this, but they want one that lets them save face. That's the big issue.
Yeah, always that saving face is such a critical piece to all of that. Just in our last 30 seconds, give us one thing kind of underneath the headline that you're going to be watching in the days and weeks ahead that might give us some indication in terms of what comes next.
Yeah, so a big one for me, and I mentioned it in the piece, as you know, this question of tactical drones, right? I mean, just very quickly, in the Ukraine war, right, these wars are going on simultaneously. Russia and Ukrainian forces have been absolutely paralyzed by these tens of thousands of tactical drones, which are everywhere. And that has been the big dog that has not barked at all in the Middle East war, right? And so Hezbollah is a tougher character, and I want to see if the Israelis start mounting even bigger ground operations in Lebanon. Will Hezbollah be able to employ some of these tactical drones in a way that Hamas simply wasn't?
Fantastic perspective, Ken Pollock, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. This is a brilliant piece. You can check it out at thedispatch.com. 1 year of military lessons, and these are so insightful and are a very good predictor, I think, of what is yet to come. Ken, thanks so much for making time for us today.
Thanks so much for having me back on, Boyd.
All right. That's Ken Pollock from American Enterprise Institute, and it's a great piece. Go check it out at thedispatch.com. Because it gives you what's kind of under the hood in terms of everything that's played out, why it's played out, and really, most important, how it positions things moving forward as we keep our eye on the Middle East. We'll be right back.
I finally decided a few months ago that enough was enough with the high electrical bills in the summer and the high heating bills in the winter, and it was time to replace our builder-grade windows of our 20-year-old home with the latest and greatest windows from Advanced Window Products. Ever since Jake and Nate showed me a demonstration of what a difference the right kind of window can have on my home's energy use, I couldn't get it off my mind. So my wife and I decided it was time. And man, am I glad we did. From the moment Ken showed up to give us a free in-home estimate, we've had such an outstanding experience through the entire process. Within an hour, we had financing set up, and then about 8 weeks later, the crew showed up and did what we thought was going to be a 2-day installation in a single day. Now our home is more comfortable. Our electrical bills have started to drop. We qualified for energy tax credits to help pay for the windows, and we even took advantage of their expertise and replaced our sliding glass deck door with one that has a pet door built in. Look, I know you don't make a decision like this on a whim. You do your research. So do that. But make sure you call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100, and you can get a special deal of $3,000 off 10 windows or more if you mention Andy when you make the appointment. 801-850-9100 or go to advancedwindows.com.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
It's official. KSL Sports is your official radio home of the Utah Hockey Club. When the puck hits the ice this fall, you'll hear every goal, every check, and every tension-filled moment on the KSL Sports Zone. Plus, let your voice be heard on the Utah Hockey Club Fan Forum on KSLSports.com, your exclusive home of the NHL and the Utah Hockey Club in Utah is KSL Sports and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Have you ever heard of the 5 Ps? That's right, the 5 Ps. These can be applied to most every area of your life, but it's especially true for you and your money. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and many years ago when I was a young man in the Marine Corps, I learned about the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Now, you can't control what's happening with the stock market, but you can control how you plan for it. Trajan Wealth and our fiduciary advisors have been helping our clients with the 5 Ps for years. We have hearts of teachers and will never complicate by using financial jargon. Our fee structure is transparent. The more you make, the more we make. The majority of our clients come from other financial advisors. Isn't it time for a second opinion to allow Trajan Wealth to help you with the 5 Ps too? Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600 or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, toxic algal blooms are turning up at Lake Powell even this late in the season. Second, more than 50,000 utility workers from 43 states are bringing electric service back online after Hurricane Milton. And third, there are still a couple of amendments on Utah's fall ballot that voters will have to decide. 86 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And, you know, with all the things going on in the world and many of the things that we see right here at home, we see scandals happening with mayors and governors and members of Congress. We hear about lying and cheating and fact-checking. And on and on and on it goes. And you might begin to wonder if America has a soul or a conscience left. And it might be time to rethink that just a little bit. Are Americans really dishonest, or are we really kind of an honest lot? Let's think again about that. And, of course, we always like to have Jay Evenson join us for that kind of discussion. And, Jay, a lot of cynicism out there of people saying, hey, we've kind of lost our way. It's a scandal a day, and some days it's 3. Where are we as a country when it comes to things like honesty?
Well, I love to do this about once a year or so, and it's especially important in an election year. And we're going to have a big debate tonight, and they're going to be fact checkers, and they're going to be telling us all about the lies and the mistruths and misstatements and all of that. So about once a year, I like to get online and go to Google and just look up things like lost money returned or lost jewelry returned. And you come up with an amazing number of stories, news stories, about people who are extraordinarily honest. Yeah. And it really reinforces and renews your faith in humankind.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for this column.
It's a great piece. You can check it out at Deseret.com. And to me, one of the interesting things that you highlighted in this particular column is I always go to this idea that a person is not honest just because they haven't had a chance to lie. And you actually go through some things where people could have had a chance to maybe take an easier path, but chose the truth instead.
Well, I highlight a number of stories. I think my favorite one was of this man named Greg Thau, who lives in Denver. And he'd been in a local bar, and he'd been involved in a pool there, on a football pool, and he'd actually won. He'd never won anything before, $511, and he got it in an envelope, and it had his name on it. And he gets to the bank to deposit it, and he can't find the envelope. He's lost it. He doesn't know where, but he has lost it. And there's a woman from Memphis, Tennessee, Carla Montgomery, and she finds this envelope. And the problem with the envelope is that his name was not spelled Greg Thau. It was spelled Throw. And so she goes online and she does a number of queries. She goes to the police. She goes to the U.S. Marshal Service. She goes to the FBI in trying to locate who belongs to this $511. Boyd, it took 5 months. 5 months she held on to this money, and her friends were telling her, oh, just enjoy it. I mean, you'll never find whose money it is. And she kept saying, no, this is not my money. And finally, she saw someone online named Thau who lived in Denver, and she thought, well, I'll take a chance. And she contacted him, and of course it was his money, and she goes to Denver and returns it to him. And I think one of the best parts about finding these stories is the aftermath and seeing how people react to things. And CBS News picked up on this story, and they had the two of them on there. And Greg Thau said, I think her act of kindness has changed my life. It's just been this domino effect. It's like if I have a choice to do the better thing or the good thing, I think of Carla. I think that's how I'll probably live the rest of my life. What a legacy of just being considerate enough to say, this isn't mine, I'm going to find whose it is and return it.
Yeah.
And how that changes lives. To me, that's just astounding. And you can find lots of stories just like that.
Yeah, they are everywhere. You just have to look, and often what we look for, we find. And it's interesting as we look at that and we engage in that, we start to see it more. It's like when you buy a new car and you think you got the only one of that color, and then suddenly you look around and everyone seems to have that car in that color. But the same thing's true when it comes to honesty and integrity and getting to the truth. We just have to look for it a little more because it really is all around us.
And it doesn't typically seek for attention.
Yeah.
So I like to say, we hear a lot about when there's a horrible crime, there's a school shooting, there's some other random horrible thing. And then we always have copycats that come along later and try to imitate that same type of crime. I firmly believe that there are copycats of goodness as well. And that when people hear stories like this, they want to do that. Years ago, I did a story on a woman who had a horrible thing done to her by a teenager who threw a frozen turkey through her windshield as she was driving down the street.
Yeah.
And she decided to forgive him in court and changed his life. And I've heard personally of stories of other people who read about that and have had similar types of experiences and have been able to forgive because of her power to forgive in that circumstance. And that just reinforces my feeling that there are copycats to goodness out there, which is why we need to keep doing good things.
Yeah, no question about it. We all need to get to that good because there's plenty of bad out there, and we'll see it in the headlines. We'll see it in our social media feed. And we have to be careful what we click on as well, because the more we click on all the negative and all the scandals of people in power or powerful positions or fame, we're going to get more of that served up. Give us just one last one real quick, Jay, in terms of maybe something that we could be looking for or should be looking for when it comes to this kind of honesty.
Well, look for examples where people could enrich themselves and they don't necessarily have to be honest.
Yeah.
What do you do when you don't have to be honest? I found one, this was a year ago, of a young man. And he went through a drive-through window at a restaurant, and in addition to his hamburger, he got that day's deposits. It was over $5,000.
Oh my goodness!
In an envelope. And so he did what any young person would do. He did a TikTok video, and he used this envelope, and he says, "Why are you doing this to me?" Kind of in a facetious sort of way. I need this money. But then he filmed himself going back to the fast food restaurant and giving that money back, and the woman who had lost, the worker there who had lost it, she was so grateful because she had just ruined her entire day by giving away the deposits for that day. And so, look for example. He could have easily gotten away with that money where people don't have to be honest, but they are. And I think that goes to what your true character is.
My conversation with Jay Evenson. You might want to think again about what you think you know about people being honest. There is integrity out there. That wraps up hour number one of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We will step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. Hour number two, we'll do our Inside Sources, inside look at presidential politics. We'll have Tim Schreiber in the house to talk Dignity Index at 2:30. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. There will be 4 amendments on Utah's ballot this year. Votes cast on 2 of them won't count. Amendments A and D have been removed by the courts, but B and C are still seeking voter approval. Amendment B increases the money going to public schools, and this comes from an increase in the allocation of funds from school trust lands. Kim Christie with Land Trust Protection says there will be no increase for Utah taxpayers.
Right now, a maximum of 4% can be distributed to schools in any given year. And based on the current formula, about $106 million went out to schools across the state.
Amendment C makes it part of the state constitution for counties to elect their sheriff. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. We're now learning the identity of the man killed in a tourist gold mine in Colorado when there was an accident in the elevator that sends 1,000 feet underground. ABC's Alex Stone reports.
46-year-old tour guide Patrick Weir, the father of a 7-year-old child, was killed when something happened with the elevator, bringing paying guests down into the mine. Weir is from a town of only 400 people, says Teller County Commissioner Dan Williams.
Just let that sink in for a minute. This is a county tragedy. This is a Colorado tragedy.
Alex Stone, ABC News.
And coming up, it looks like we are close to setting a new record for the date with our warm temperature today. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
At Macy's, we're proud to be local and support local. Carrying local products and produce is important to us. We are proud to support our local growers and bring peak freshness to you and your family. To make shopping local easier for you, we have added Utah Proud tags beneath local products. As you shop our stores, look out for the tags as you shop and show your pride for local Utah companies and growers. Thank you for shopping local yourself by shopping at Macy's. Macy's, happy shopping!
It's official. KSL Sports is your official radio home of the Utah Hockey Club. When the puck hits the ice this fall, you'll hear every goal, every check, and every tension-filled moment on the KSL Sports Zone. Plus, let your voice be heard on the Utah Hockey Club Fan Forum on KSLSports.com. Your exclusive home of the NHL and the Utah Hockey Club in Utah is KSL Sports and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you ordered a steak sandwich and they served you bologna, you'd be ticked off.
B-O-L-O-G-N-A or B-A-L-O-N-E-Y. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It's still bologna.
Hi, this is Jason.
And Kathy of Window World.
We could go on and on about Window World, but folks, it's all about you.
Your home and what you need.
Window World is America's #1 window replacement company.
Call Window World at 801-281-8111.
Or check windowworldutah.com. And as Doug always said, that's no baloney.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a walk-up with central air and a skylight, and you found it. Now, every Friday night, you get to fall asleep to the sound of your downstairs neighbors' dance parties. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
At the UPS Store, we know being a small business owner means holiday time is still go time. Still get those orders shipped time. And still re-up on stamps and supplies time. That's why this upcoming holiday, while others close up shop, we'll be open. And happy to help you keep being unstoppable. Come into your local store today. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
Still some leftover heavy and sometimes slower traffic northbound I-15 going from Orem up to Pleasant Grove from an earlier crash. Southbound I-15 still bogged down as you go from 53rd South in Murray to 72nd South in Midvale. Now we have a new accident, a crash with possible injuries. They're blocking the entire exit ramp eastbound on the 21st South Freeway. This is about 9th West. If you're trying to get to I-15, you're going to need to continue to go eastbound and avoid that exit ramp. If you're trying to get to the surface streets, you'll need to find an alternate route. UDOT construction alert. Plan ahead as southbound I-215 in West Valley is down to one lane each night through Saturday, followed by a full closure of the freeway on Sunday night for bridge repairs. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And we're close to another warm temperature record today. Our high of 86, and that's where we are right now. We'll see highs in the 80s through the weekend. I'm Dan Bomis from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Election season is only heating up, and it will be very close, I think, right down to the end between Vice President Harris and former President Trump. While the administration is focused, obviously, on hurricane recovery efforts in the southeast, both Mr. Trump and Ms. Harris are campaigning hard for every last vote, every undecided citizen of the country. And they're even doing it in some pretty interesting ways that may get us to think again about what we think we know when a candidate says, I'm going on a media blitz. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we do this every Friday. We kind of go behind the scenes, give you an Inside Sources inside look at the presidential race and what the candidates have been up to and why they've been doing it. So this is not so much in terms of whether you like this policy or that policy, but it's fascinating to look at what are they talking about and why are they talking about that? Who do they think they're influencing? What avenues are they trying to get some inroads into, especially in these crucial swing states? And so we want to break that down just a little bit. And one of the things that was most stunning this week, of course, Vice President Harris made a bold declaration as we rolled into the weekend saying that next week was a big media blitz. Of course, Mr. Trump is always on a media blitz, but what does media blitz mean anymore? Really interesting. Both candidates chose to spend some time this week not doing sit-down formal interviews, not doing formal press conferences in front of the media, but doing podcasts. Now, there's some strategy behind that, to be sure, and it's a good thing because the podcasts are where you're going to reach a wider, younger audience and engage them in a little different way than just the traditional news. So there's clearly some strategy around that, which is a good thing in terms of getting more people involved in the process. The question then becomes, at the expense of what? Because campaign strategy is always a series of trade-offs. If we choose to spend time doing this, we don't have time to do that. And this week in particular was interesting because much of what they did decide to do were very soft, very, very, very soft questions from very friendly audiences on podcasts. And so I can see the strategy when you look at the overarching necessity of what we should be talking about during a presidential election. We're not getting to any of those kinds of things, nor are they really having to answer hard questions about real issues. And so I understand the strategy behind it, and it's much safer to be on a podcast in a friendly environment than it is to really be sitting down and doing a press conference or with a reporter who's not going to let you get away with a good laugh, a joke, or a jab. It's just different. But we have to remember what the job is. Remember, this is job interview time for both of these candidates. And as citizens, we should be looking at it as job interview time. And so, yeah, you can have some fun. Yep, you can go to some different places and spaces to meet voters where they are. And it's a serious job you're applying for. And there are serious questions. And those serious questions should get serious answers. So let's pick up on a few of the things that each of the candidates chose to talk about this week. Yesterday, speaking at the Detroit Economic Club, former President Trump announced a new proposal to make interest on car loans tax deductible.
Today, I am also announcing that as part of our tax cuts, we will make interest on car loans fully deductible. That's going to revolutionize your industry. This will stimulate massive domestic auto production and make car ownership dramatically more affordable for millions and millions of working American families. This is a phenomenal thing.
That's the former president yesterday. Again, he was in Detroit talking to the Economic Club, talking about making interest on car loans tax deductible. Pretty populous, pretty popular. How that gets paid for, what that actually does it lower the ability or raise the ability of the average citizen to get a car and to get a car loan? That's going to be an interesting thing to see what it does to prices. If people just think, well, there's going to be some deductions from the government, so we might just be able to jack the price up a little bit because people will be willing to pay it, knowing they're going to get a deduction. Longtime 60-Minute reporter Bill Whitaker interviewed the vice president on Sunday. It aired on Monday. And he asked why Prime Minister of Israel Netanyahu continues to ignore American advice. Here's this exchange.
We supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid. And yet Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden-Harris administration has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
That was the hardest of the interviews, I think, that Vice President Harris had this past week. And I actually thought that was her best answer. There has been some controversy swirling over how CBS and 60 Minutes edited that interview. And we're going to let that play out a little bit to see exactly what happened, look at the transcript, and see what kind of editing took place. Editing's part of the deal. How creative that editing was and what it did in terms of tilting any of the answer. That's the real question I think people want to get answers from. And that's people from both sides of the political aisle, by the way, because that's an important one in terms of our trust in media. Now, also this week, former President Trump was interviewed by a group of comedians on the Flagrant podcast. That's Andrew Schultz and Akash Singh. Here's a clip from that interview.
I think I like this interview. I think it's right. And by the way, congratulations! I hear your show is is crazy monster success.
We're doing pretty good. We're very we're interviewing presidents.
It's really good, and right in the middle of a campaign with only 29 days to go. Yeah, and you're taking up time. Don't you feel
just to talk about your family.
Yeah, we're just complimenting. You know what it is? It's a different world out there. You guys and some others.
Kamala Harris, for her part, she made an appearance on the popular Call Her Daddy podcast with Alex Cooper. Alex asked the vice president why she chose to interview on her podcast. Here's that exchange.
I'm curious, you don't do too many long-form interviews. What made you want to do Call Her Daddy today?
Well, I think you and your listeners have really got this thing right, which is one of the best ways to communicate with people is to be real. Your voice in your show is really about your listeners.
So there's some interesting perspective. A couple of more serious moments on the campaign trail for each candidate. Some pretty light moments for both candidates on some podcasts. And the question I think we have to get to in all of this, I think the thing that we have to think again about is what are we really auditioning our candidates to do and to be? And while I do 100% agree from the communication strategy standpoint that you got to go where the voters are, you got to meet them where they are, and you got to serve things up in a way that they'll take it in and at least listen in, I get all of that. And do we really want to put someone in the White House, behind the Resolute desk, in the Oval Office, making really hard decisions about things that are going to impact all of us, as well as the rest of the world, if their only test is sitting on a comfy couch, talking to a podcaster? We can have that to get to know them a little bit in terms of how they think and if they have a sense of humor, kind of their worldview. But if we lose the ability to have real interviews about real issues with real hard questions that warrant real hard, honest answers, I think we got to rethink where we're actually headed when it comes to what constitutes an actual media blitz for a candidate. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Ballots hit voter mailboxes next week, and the stakes are high. Stay informed on Utah races for governor, U.S. Senator, and Attorney General. And, of course, the presidential election.
We have you covered.
With updates mornings and afternoons and conversation middays. Your voice, your vote 2024.
On KSL News Radio.
If you need a new roof, there's a reason IWC Roofing is the #1 residential roofing contractor in Utah. IWC has been replacing roofs for 27 years. They are professionals. You don't get some janky subcontractor fiddling around up there. You get experienced IWC employees on your roof, and they finish most jobs in a single day. They're in, they're out, and they power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now you're wondering about the price. After all, IWC is one of the few Owens Corning Platinum certified contractors in the entire state, but they offer value pricing, and right now, take advantage of their fall special. $2,000 off your quote. And of course, they'll work with you on financing, so call IWC Roofing, the highest rated roofing contractor in Utah, plus $2,000 off. Right now, call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690, or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
Have you lost weight in the past but gained it all back and more? We know the secret to losing weight and keeping it off long-term without drugs or injections. At SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com, many clients lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two, or keep it off without prepackaged meals, no exercising, no hormones, no injections, no drugs or surgery. Go to SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com now.
One of my favorite things about the Salt Lake City Fat Loss program was that they would send me texts and videos and phone calls to help keep me on track. They'd give me little tweaks and advice how to stay effective and lose a ton of weight. 57 pounds in 60 days. SLCFatLoss.com.
To learn about our program, go to SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com and schedule your free private phone consultation. Our staff will walk you through our entire program, talk about your health goals, and see if it's a good fit for you. Call 801-450-1882 or go to SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com to schedule your free phone consultation now. That's SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com. Results may vary.
Utah's biggest used RV Palooza is back and better than ever. This October 10th through the 12th at the Shops at Southtown. You're getting the best deals of the season on used travel trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, motorhomes, and more. Shop gently used RVs at the show and save thousands over fall pricing anywhere else. Find deals starting as low as $9,995, like on a 2021 Forest River Viking LS Series M238 LS tent camper. Plus, shop select new RVs at used pricing, not to mention blowout pricing on all remaining 2024s in stock. You'll also enjoy no payments until 2025 on approved credit. Finish your fall camping season in style without a single monthly payment. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Bring it to the show to get maximum trade-in value. We're even including a 1-year Bish Fix membership with every RV purchase. Your fast track to RV service repairs. And don't miss out on our Hunter Special section to keep your hunting season going strong. All this plus free admission to the Utah Used RV Palooza. 3 days only, October 10th through the 12th at the Shops at Southtown. Open daily at 10 a.m. Sponsored by Bish's RV. See you there.
You know, it's hard to believe that Dee and I have now been living in our new house for about 9 years now. You know, the thing that has really surprised me is how many appliances we have had to have work on and even replace. You know, the one that we haven't replaced, haven't done any work on at all, have not had a minute's trouble with, it's the Connecticut soft water system. And it's so interesting because when we were building the home, the builder said, okay, well, what do you want for a water softener? And I just interrupted. I said, wait, we're going to go with Connecticut. And they just smiled at me like, yeah, we know about Connecticut. Never once have we had an issue with our Connecticut soft water system, not only in our new home, but in our previous home as well. It just sits there in the basement, does its job, does it so much more efficiently than any other soft water system out there on the market today. Why don't you give them a call, 801-576-8600, or go to softwaterutah.com.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
What makes you so different than the rest of us?
We ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Tell me more.
Our investment counselors focus on service over sales, prioritizing clients' needs.
How do you make money?
We don't sell any commission-based products. We have a simple management fee based on the value of our client's portfolio. So we do better when our clients do better.
What about client portfolios?
We get to know each client, their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more, and then we tailor a portfolio based on their specific goals and needs.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority. Our goal is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Wow, maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, we've heard a lot about Amendments A and D, but they won't count in this election. On the other hand, voters will decide Amendments B and C. Second, we're learning more about the young father who died in a tourist mine accident in Colorado. And third, some big construction road closures planned for this weekend. 86 and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as the 2024 presidential election approaches, the focus on policy surely has taken a back seat to all the vibes and controversy and media blitzes that are all about podcasts as opposed to real conversations or media interaction. And yet the voters need to pay attention because the amount of power the president holds through executive orders is pretty immense. We've talked about this in the past, that often what gets done by executive order gets undone by executive order or ends up in the courts one way or the other. And I think the thing that frightens me the most over any candidate, especially those presidential candidates, again, both sides of the aisle, is when they say, on day one, I will, and it's usually an executive order. We want to talk about why that's problematic, why we should be listening a little more closely, and why we ought to think again about what we think we know when it comes to executive orders. Really thrilled to have joining us on the program Alex Narasta, Vice President for Economic and Social Policy Studies at the Cato Institute. And Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you on. A fabulous piece that you wrote today at The Hill, at thehill.com, on executive orders and why these are so problematic. As you might have guessed, we're a little passionate about the problem with executive orders on this show. But just remind our listeners, how did we get here when it comes to executive orders?
Well, American law doesn't actually define what an executive order is. Basically, what it is, in effect, is an order written by the president to direct federal agencies that are under his supervision or federal employees or others to try to enforce the law as he sees it on the books, to change procedure, to interact with other agencies, and numerous other consequences of legislation passed by Congress that give the president specific authority in some cases to make a lot of decisions. And many of these cases, executive orders are, innocuous. They're totally fine. There are things like make sure that when you report to me as the president, you give me this information, for instance. But others have the effect of basically new laws and new legislation not approved by Congress, but through the actions of the president by himself with basically no oversight.
Yeah, and it seems to me, and you covered this so well in your piece at thehill.com, is that a lot of these executive orders have become a little easier to do. It seems that Congress continues to abdicate its authority and power to the executive branch. The executive branch, and regardless of party, is all too happy to take it. They do an executive order, but then everything seems to end up in the courts. Kind of walk us through that side of the equation.
Well, a lot of presidential actions do end up in the courts. Some executive orders do end up there, but it's also, of course, very rare for executive orders to be struck down by the courts. Up through like 1999, there were basically 14 executive orders struck down, and very few since then, hardly any since then that I've been able to find. So it's really an expression, a failure, basically, of the functioning of the American government and the division of powers and the separation of powers envisioned by the Constitution. The framers did not anticipate that Congress would voluntarily give up its power to the executive, but that is what we've seen, especially over the last 90 years since the New Deal.
And so I know you've done some deep digging on these executive orders, and regardless of who actually wins on the first Tuesday of November this year, what are some of those things that they ought to be looking at, some of that low-hanging fruit that you described in your piece?
So some of it, the piece is based on this longer report we have at Cato where we identify several scores of executive orders that should be revoked or amended on day one. Some of these will appeal to Donald Trump if he wins. Some would appeal to Kamala Harris if she wins. But to give you a few examples, the one that I like a lot is there is an executive order, two executive orders, 11246 and 11478, that mandate affirmative action in federal hiring and contracting. So the only reason the federal government has affirmative action and how it operates is because of executive orders. And those should be amended on day one to exclude any kind of affirmative action or disparate impact analysis. So that's probably the one that sticks out in my mind the most. Another one is a more recent executive order that was issued by President Biden. It's Executive Order 14110, which creates mandates a regulatory framework for artificial intelligence research. We recommend amending that EO, basically deleting about 90% of it, and the only piece that is remaining is making it a little more streamlined for skilled foreign workers who work in AI to come to the U.S. Everything else should be gotten rid of. We don't want to put regulatory roadblocks in the way of this new technology that could be so beneficial. We identify numerous proclamations that raise tariffs and restrictions on the importation of foreign goods. This has been an especially big problem during the Trump and Biden administrations. We recommend revoking all of those.
Yeah, those are some great perspectives, and I think getting rid of just 90% of something is usually a pretty good path to get where we need to go, especially when it comes to some of those executive orders. Great perspective, great piece. You can check out Alex's piece at thehill.com. And again, Alex Nowrasteh, Vice President for Economic and Social Policy Studies at the Cato Institute. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Again, that's Alex Nowrasteh, Vice President for Economic and Social Policy Study at the Cato Institute. And the executive order palooza, I think, is what it's become known for. Everyone's declaring what they will do on day one. But there are a few things that they could do. And as Alex pointed out, a lot of those executive orders that I think we could get behind are usually amending or getting rid of previous executive orders. Because this is the real problem in all of this. The more Congress doesn't do its job, the more the executive branch feels like they can just act on their own with a cell phone and a pen, or just a pen. We've seen in the last several administrations that opening day when they're in the Oval Office and there is just a stack a mile high of executive orders that they're going to sign that haven't gone through Congress, haven't been voted on in front of the public, and they're going to do it by the stroke of a pen. That totally blows a hole in our separations of power. It's not a good day for the Republic if we're doing everything by executive order. All right, we're going to step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. Crucial conversation coming up next, right here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. A man who was arrested after a fatal wrong-way crash in West Valley is facing additional charges now. Cesar Omar Perez is facing a total of 18 counts, including murder. Detectives in Sandy have linked him to a road rage shooting on September 9th. Police say a man on a motorcycle fired a shot at another driver. That person was not hurt. Perez is also suspected of shooting into a lockbox at a car dealership in Salt Lake City. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Former President Trump campaigning in Aurora, Colorado today. Earlier this week, Trump claimed Venezuelan immigrants have taken over apartment buildings there.
We're here finally in Aurora, Colorado, to call the attention of the world, and unfortunately the world's already got its attention, to one of the most egregious betrayals that any leader in any nation has ever inflicted on its own people.
Now, the mayor of Aurora says the former president's claim is false. Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average closing trading today up 409 points. The Nasdaq was up 60 and the S&P 500 up 35. And our KSL weather looks like we're close to setting a new record for the date. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Utah, time is running out. November's elections are fast approaching, and your voice is crucial to holding Utah's judges accountable. What do you know about the judges on your ballot? Are you ready to make informed decisions on judicial retention? Wondering how to stay informed? It's straightforward. The Utah Judicial Performance Evaluation Commission is here to help. Just follow these 3 steps. Step 1, visit judges.utah.gov, your portal to information about all Utah judges. Step 2, select your county to see which judges are on your ballot. Step 3, scroll through and review comprehensive evaluations of performance details for each judge. With judges.utah.gov, you're empowered to make decisions that count. Each click gets you closer to a well-informed vote, strengthening our justice system. Utah, make your voice heard. Visit judges.utah.gov today. And don't miss Dave and Ujanovic Monday for more insights on knowing our judges before you vote. Complete your ballot. Make it count. Your informed vote matters.
Beatty, Nevada, your getaway to Death Valley, an entryway to a true desert adventure. Enjoy exciting offerings for all your senses and imagination. In Beatty, visit Eddie World, the largest candy store in Nevada, and visit their historic museum, the ghost town of Rhyolite, and see sculptures in the desert at Goldwell. Hiking, biking, and hundreds of miles of ATV trails await you. For the ultimate adventure, make Beatty, Nevada your next destination and claim a free gift at BeattyNevada.org. Wrangle up some fun at Beatty Days 2024, Friday, October 25th through Sunday, October 27th. It's old-fashioned family fun with a chili cook-off, live music, bed races, a classic car show, cornhole and horseshoe tournaments, model railroads, a parade, food and craft vendors, contests for everyone, and lots more. The fun is in Beatty, Nevada this October 25th through the 27th. Visit BeattyNevada.org for the full schedule. That's BeattyNevada.org.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. Did you know that we offer 3 distinct styles of gutter protection? Each one meant to handle a specific leaf problem. You might not even know there are different styles of gutter protection, but there are. And if you pick the wrong one, it could be a huge waste of money. Now, the big gutter guard companies won't tell you this. They try to sell you a one-size-fits-all gutter guard. And it could be completely wrong for the amount and types of trees and leaves you have. Not RGS Exteriors. We understand which kind of leaf problem needs which kind of gutter guard. We'll do an in-depth evaluation to assess the types, locations, and numbers of trees in your yard. Based on that data, we match your home to the right gutter guard. So don't risk wasting money on the wrong gutter protection. For a free evaluation and estimate, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsexteriors.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
We still have crews on the scene of this crash with possible injuries. It had been blocking the exit ramp. You can take it now. This is eastbound on the 21st South Freeway at 9th West, but use caution getting around the vehicles at that ramp. And then delays continue on southbound I-15 Murray to Midvale and near the South Interchange, the I-215 junction. It looks like we have multiple vehicles involved in a minor accident on the shoulder out of traffic. prep for winter, get a furnace inspection from a certified heating contractor to check for safety and efficiency. A reminder from Inbridge Gas. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Well, we've tied that temperature record for the date now, 87 degrees, and we'll see if it goes any higher to set a new one. We will see highs in the 80s through the weekend. And right now, we're at, again, 87 degrees. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, in an era of heightened political polarization, the Dignity Index, of course, is a tool we have talked about on this program before. It is a great way to evaluate the tone, the perspective of political discourse. It is not designed to be a speech police or a woke tool to get us to not talk about things that actually matter. It's actually a way to get past all of the politics and all of the polarization to make sure that we aren't letting our rhetoric and the way we talk about things keep us a safe distance from actually talking about those things. We are thrilled to have back in studio with us today, of course, Tim Shriver, co-creator of the Dignity Index, co-founder of Unite, and, of course, a legend in Special Olympics International, which is just, we could talk about that all afternoon and we'd all be better off. We're also joined by Natalie Gochner, of course, Associate Dean in the David Eccles School of Business and Director of the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute with our friends at the University of Utah. And welcome, both of you, back to the studio.
Thanks for having us. Boyd.
Yeah. We have had some fascinating conversations today, and you have been talking with a lot of different folks around the state. And when we were up at the Hinckley today, on which will appear on the Hinckley Report tonight, everyone can tune in on PBS for that. But as we were going through this conversation, the thing that stuck in my mind was this idea of dignity is not a slogan, and it can't be a slogan. It's got to be a national imperative. That it has to be a shared project of the American people. And I know that's what you are most passionate about. I know that's the kind of transformational spiritual experiences you're trying to create. So, Tim, give us an update.
Well, I think, look, the good news, Boyd, is that even a month out from a presidential election in a deeply toxic political environment in a country that feels divided, one from the other, brother from sister, state from state, even in moments like this, the demand for change is big. We're seeing it across the board. We're seeing it in schools. We're seeing it in places of business. We don't want contempt in our company. We want a company that allows people to disagree and work in a team with dignity. We're seeing the same thing we're hearing in university campuses. We hear this from President Randall here at the University of Utah, but we're also hearing it from students at Utah State, at Brigham Young. We want to bring dignity to our campus. We want to allow people the capacity to grow and think and learn and challenge ideas without dehumanizing contempt. So, my view is that people despair of the situation, and I understand why, because they hear so much that's negative. But I think we have to remind each other that most of us are starving for an alternative, and if we give the alternative to folks, they'll respond positively to it. You're right. It's not a slogan. It's not a speech. It's not a line. Dignity is an experience. It's a recognition. It's a way of seeing. It's not just what you see. It's how you see. Yeah. You see from a place of your own dignity to see the dignity in another, even when you passionately disagree. We met with leaders in the legislature, strident, powerful, opinionated leaders in the legislature who are known for being quite strong in their opinions. And yet they said the same thing. We don't want to be part of a culture of dehumanizing contempt. We want to be strong advocates for our policy positions, but we don't want to be hateful in the process.
Yeah, no question about that. And Natalie, as you've observed this from your unique perch at the Gardner Institute, and been able to watch some of the students go through this process and experience it, just give us a couple of takeaways in terms of what you see and what you sense in terms of where we are with the Dignity Index.
A lot of momentum. Of course, our vision here, President Randall's asked us to be a top 10 public university with unsurpassed societal impact, and it's my great privilege to be the academic host to someone like Tim Shriver, who's a impact scholar at the University of Utah. Tom Roschert and Tammy Pfeiffer are also on his team, and they're here this week. And we were in front of nonprofit leaders. We've been in front of faculty. We've been in front of legislative leadership. And really what I feel is that there's something so right about this that it's gaining momentum.
That's great. And that momentum, I think, is part that hunger. I think people are starving for it. They don't quite know how to ask for it. But when they experience it, it is like oxygen. It's like, oh, yeah, I want to be part of that conversation, especially our young people. Kind of walk us through that, Tim. You did some very fascinating things with both the presidential debate between Vice President Harris and former President Trump, as well as the vice presidential debate with Tim Walz and
Mr.
Senator Vance. Give us a sense of what you saw, kind of some high levels in terms of those conversations and how they shook out in terms of dignity.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say by way of answering is that anybody listening to this is going to have their guard up because they're going to assume that I'm going to be biased. Not necessarily because you know me, but just because you're assuming whoever is judging former President Trump and Vice President Harris or Senator Vance and Governor Walz, you must be biased. And I'm going to be listening for your bias. Okay, so here's the first thing. We've tried really hard. We've spent 2 years trying to weed bias out of the Dignity Index so that we can have an objective way of scoring speech, not judging people, just scoring their speech. Look at it online if you have a minute, from 1 to 8, from the lowest levels of contempt to the highest levels of dignity and every step along the way. What we found was actually, in some ways, quite dramatic. In the presidential debate, both former President Trump and Vice President Harris frequently scored quite low. They frequently attacked one another. They frequently demeaned and almost dehumanized one another. In the vice presidential debate, on the other hand, both Senator Vance and Governor Walz frequently treated each other with dignity. So you say, what's going on here? Well, some people will say, well, obviously Walz and Vance were lying, because they really wish they could attack each other. But I think what's going on is actually what's happening for many of us. We're used to, both former President Trump and Vice President Harris are in a system that rewards this dehumanizing contempt, so they modeled it. For better or for worse, I'm sorry to say, both sides modeled contempt. But there's also a side of us that's starving for the alternative, and all of a sudden we saw it, again, not perfect, but in both Senator Vance and Governor Walz. So we're in this moment, as Natalie has just said, we're in this moment of transition as a country, I believe. As a state here in Utah, I've seen it just on my short visit. You're seeing some people are going, I'm furious, I want more contempt, I want to burn the place down. But there's a counter trend now of people saying, wait a minute, you might have strong opinions, but we don't need that level of dehumanization. So the debates kind of give us a sense, and it also shows us that dignity is possible.
Yeah.
You look at the last exchange between Senator Vance and Governor Walz. It may seem like years ago now. It's, in news cycles, this is old news. But go back. It's on our site. You can see the quote. Governor Walz begins by saying, this has been a good debate. We've found common ground. I may have made mistakes. Senator Vance says right away, me too. Me too. And it's all of a sudden as though there's a collective breath. At least that's the way I felt.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised that many people who wrote to us and reported that they were watching the debate felt the same.
Yeah, I think that exhale moment, I think, was so important to say, wow, it is possible to have a different kind of conversation. And Natalie, I want to go back to you and talk about where we have kind of fallen and what we saw in the presidential debate, which was much more in what we've become comfortable with, sadly, with the more performative, pejorative-laced name-calling and back and forth, or as our good friend, former Senator Ben Sasse would call it, performative jackassery that never leads us to a good conversation. But it's the performative component to it, and we have to ask ourselves,
That's a 4, by the way.
Is that a 4? Now, I was just calling balls and strikes. Equal opportunity offender. We're also equal opportunity commenders when they get it right. And so what is it about that performative nature? Because we're not hiring actors to be in theater.
Yeah.
We're actually hiring them to govern.
Yeah, Boyd, we need our institutions. And by that, I mean our families, our churches, our Congress, our Supreme Court, our media, our academic institutions. We need them to be formative, not performative, right? That's the point. And if they're formative, they're building, not destroying, right? They're being illuminators, not diminishers, is how David Brooks might say that. And just one other thing I want to put out there is that this is a state with the highest levels of social capital of any state in the nation.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is networks of trust. We still solve problems. We still get things done. This is the youngest state in the nation by far, youngest median age. There's something about our networks, our collaboration, and about our youth that gives me great hope that we're the place where a lot of these ideas can really start to move and optimize.
Yeah, and as we've seen this throughout history, it always does seem to be kind of a generational swinging of the pendulum. It's always the rising generation that says, you know, we're done with that, at least for a season, and so we're going to swing back. And so, Tim, from your perspective, how do you see that swing, and what is it that you're sensing from the young people in particular that might give us all a little bit of hope that that pendulum might actually swing the other way?
I think it's such an interesting point about this performative, and Natalie said it so beautifully, versus formative leadership. And I want to offer a slightly different view on this. I think part of what political figures at their best do is remind us of what our best is. They tell us stories. They create narratives that allow us to see ourselves in the version they have of their state or their city or their country. Our greatest presidents have spoken in words that resound through decades and ages because those words told us something about ourselves. Is that performative? I don't know. But it's narratively powerful. It provides us with images and metaphors and words that allow us to grow and trust and believe. I don't want to discourage political figures from drawing deep within themselves to capture images and stories that animate the culture and animate our hearts and souls. That's what they should be doing. They should, yes, create policy and programs and outcomes and pass budgets and so on, but they should also find ways to tell us a story of ourselves in which we can see the best of ourselves. I think young people are looking for that. I mean, people say, "Oh, that doesn't sell." I don't agree. You know, if you ask people in the room, what have they watched on Netflix or on streaming services almost every hand goes up when you say Ted Lasso. Now, Ted Lasso, I don't know who wrote the script, but the script has countless moments in which the characters take hostility and contempt and transform it into a different story for the team, for the club, for the city, for the country, for the sport. And you watch it mesmerized by the talent to make something which appears to be a dead end, humiliating kind of loggerheads between people and unlock it with different energy. So I don't buy it that young people are selling out or have given up. Some, I'm sorry to say, feel like they have no option but to give up. But let's tell them a story where they see themselves, and I think they'll be back with us right away.
Yeah, no question about it. It's Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs told me on this program right before he passed away, he was most worried about cultural climate change, the heat of our angry rhetoric on one hand, but the Arctic frost that comes when we disconnect or give up and say there's no hope. I can't be involved in that. So then we isolate, we become alone, and then we lose everything. Well, we're going to stay with the question and the conversation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and stay with this conversation because that's what we do. We got more things to cover. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I finally decided a few months ago that enough was enough with the high electrical bills in the summer and the high heating bills in the winter, and it was time to replace our builder-grade windows of our 20-year-old home with the latest and greatest windows from Advanced Window Products. Ever since Jake and Nate showed me a demonstration of what a difference the right kind of window can have on my home's energy use, I couldn't get it off my mind. So my wife and I decided it was time. And man, am I glad we did. From the moment Ken showed up to give us a free in-home estimate, we've had such an outstanding experience through the entire process. Within an hour, we had financing set up, and then about 8 weeks later, the crew showed up and did what we thought was going to be a 2-day installation in a single day. Now our home is more comfortable. Our electrical bills have started to drop. We qualified for energy tax credits to help pay for the windows, and we even took advantage of their expertise and replaced our sliding glass deck door with one that has a pet door built in. Look, I know you don't make a decision like this on a whim. You do your research. So do that. But make sure you call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100, and you can get a special deal of $3,000 off 10 windows or more if you mention Andy when you make the appointment. 801-850-9100 or go to advancedwindows.com.
We're in St. George, and Jenny found a home online that she really loved.
And then we went through it with our realtor. He started pointing out things that were going to just lead us to a money pit.
We would have been in this house $50,000 or more in repairs.
With the help of our realtor, we were able to find a brand new home for $100,000 less than what we would have been paying for one that was 12 years older. We thought we were going to save money not using a realtor, but in the end, our realtor actually saved us over $150,000.
Let an experienced realtor guide you. Go to myrealtorstory.com.
At Common Spirit Health, we don't just see a cancer diagnosis. We see you, and you don't have to do this alone. We believe you should be surrounded by your people, so you can keep them close while you get care close to home. Supported by our care team from diagnosis to treatment and beyond, and strengthened by treatment tailored to you. Because there's no one-size-fits-all approach to cancer care. Find cancer care with human kindness close to you at mountain.commonspirit.org.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. We're staying with the question and the conversation when it comes to dignity. Of course, we have our good friends Tim Shriver and Natalie Gochner in the house with us today. And Tim, let's pick up with you in terms of what do we actually do about this? We talk about it. We think we start to understand a little bit. Now let's get to the practical tacticals of what's the strategy and what are the tactics that we should be thinking about, especially as we roll towards that first Tuesday of November.
Well, look, there's two levels of this, Boyd, and you've talked about this yourself. There's the personal level. It's very hard to see the dignity in someone else if you haven't first found it within yourself, and if you don't have a practice that strengthens your capacity in conflict to not react with violence and anger and hostility to other people, to react from principle and from compassion. But there's also a political angle here. And, you know, the conventional wisdom is the only thing that can allow you to win is contempt. You got to go negative. You got to really come after the other person. We don't think that's accurate. We think the Waltz-Vance debate proves that there actually is a dignity strategy. Here's how it looks. When both sides are using a contempt strategy and neither side is getting swing voters, that's an alarm bell.
Yeah.
It's not working. Contempt is not winning over people who are disaffected by, and I dare say disgusted by, contempt.
Yeah.
Those vast numbers of Americans who have checked out of the system, not because people disagree on education funding or capital gains, they've checked out because they don't want to be exposed to dehumanizing contempt.
Yeah.
Those voters, if I'm just a pure political tactician, those voters are there for the taking. There's a strategy we're seeing, and we've seen this in some congressional races and Senate races as well, where candidates are opting for a dignity strategy in order to win. So we think it's not only the right strategy for those of you thinking about this from a moral point of view or from a humane point of view. If you really believe in tolerance, dignity is your strategy. If you really have a strong faith, dignity is your strategy. But also, if you really want to win, dignity is your strategy too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Natalie, let's go to you just real quick in our last couple of moments. You penned a great piece at Deseret.com. The lieutenant governor gave a brilliant speech. She came on this show, and we talked about some of those things in terms of, again, this undermining of trust in our institutions, and not just the rhetoric, but the actual threat of violence, and how we've got to change that dynamic. Again, not just to win races and have political points, but to actually lead and to govern.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was thinking, Doug, is our lieutenant governor's leading. She's doing something that is hard to do. It's a lonely place to be sometimes, to stand up to your, power base or her party in some sort of way, if you think of it that way. But here's the thing. The contempt is making us sick. It's hurting our families.
Yeah.
It's breaking up our republic. And we're paying a price. And so we need to look in our own sphere of influence, and we need to support leaders and ask our leaders to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, as we come down the home stretch, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Give us something, as you've been watching this all unfold, you've been creating these experiences and this transformation around the country. What's the one thing that we all ought to think different today? What's one thing we ought to do different today?
Well, we ask people all the time what works for you. Here's a couple things that work. There's a set of sort of strategies, if you will, around listening. The 3 words that capture that the best, I think, is to try in a disagreement to use these words. Tell me more. Allow the person with whom you disagree the respect and the dignity to tell their story without feeling you're going to attack them. Tell me more is a simple way to listen, to try to understand, to try to have an open mind where you try to capture and find the deeper values that the person is speaking from. The second thing I think we can do in addition to listening is disagree on programs, policies, and outcomes. Do not attack people. At some level, most of us in a state like Utah, but most of us, I would dare say, understand that everybody's had a tough time. Everybody's got pain. Yeah. Everybody's got struggle.
Yeah.
And everybody deserves a little bit of dignity. So even if you have the most strident disagreement with someone, give them the chance to allow their dignity to be preserved, even if their positions are anathema to yours. Challenge them on the positions, challenge them on the policies, challenge them on the outcomes, but leave their dignity intact.
Yeah, no question about it. And we are a country that is always at its best when we are a country of big ideas and big, awesome, raucous, roiling debate, as long as we keep dignity in the center of it all. We can talk about anything in this country. It's how we do it that actually matters. And when we begin by that sense of humanity, we get to the dignity, which ultimately leads to the divinity, that we're all fellow travelers here on this crazy planet of ours, and we're all just doing our best. And I think the other thing that I want everyone to just be thinking or rethinking about today is that whole idea of curiosity and radical curiosity. Why does someone think that way? What is their experience that leads them? I remember 2 members of Congress, a Democrat and a Republican, and they couldn't figure out why each of them belonged to that party because they seemed so normal and rational. And one was very leery of the federal government because they grew up in Haiti, where the federal government had taken their family and stripped them of their dream. And the other grew up in Alabama, where it was the federal government that saved them from the local government. And they were just coming from 2 different points of the compass. But they were radically curious, and because of that, they did some extraordinary things together. And that's what we all have to get to. So as we close out the program today, stay radically curious, listen different. If you must speak, ask a question, and recognize that what we do together, our Constitution is designed to force us to work together, to get to the dignity, because it's we the people and what we choose to do together that ultimately makes the difference and will get us to the dignity, the divinity, and more unity in our nation. That wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.